Hi everybody, sorry it's been a week or so since I last checked in, and thank you everyone for subscribing and liking and commenting. It really goes a long way, and I appreciate it, and I hope that you'll share the word, spread the word, and let other people know that this is not an AI bot that's talking to you about F1. It's just a middle-aged dad that's rambling about F1 with my limited experience. I've never driven an F1 car. I have watched a lot of F1 races, and like everybody else, and like everyone's backside, I do have an opinion, but whether you take my opinion or not is completely up to you. So I hope that some of what I say resonates. So what I wanted to talk about today was the news in the last 24 hours from Cadillac, which is that they've now announced both of their drivers for the next season, which is going to be Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez. And, I think this was a very poorly kept secret that one or both of those would be coming into the team. And, my opinion on that, well, I have mixed opinions, really. I think, it makes sense to me that they would bring in two experienced heads. They're a new team. They're trying to get off the ground. They want plenty of experience and feedback, both from past history of driving F1 cars, what they've seen from previous F1 cars that they've driven, how the team's structured, what's the most efficient way to get the team to perform optimally, because, all those tiny little margins make a huge difference in F1, not just in terms of the speed of the car, but also the way that the team operates in the background. So I can see it. I can understand it. It makes sense. The other side of me, though, is like, guys, could you not have taken a risk on one of the drivers and put somebody that's a bit more of a rookie in, potentially somebody American, because it's an American team that would have just kind of like, built into that whole sort of ethos of it being an American team with an American driver. They've chosen not to go down that route. Now, don't think Logan Sargent would have been the solution to that unless they wanted to spend most of the time repairing cars. But still, nonetheless, I think it's a shame that they've not really taken a risk there. But, they're trying to get off the ground, and F1 is littered with teams over the past 20, 30, more than that actually, years, that have come in, made big announcements and then disappeared again. The biggest exceptions to that really being Red Bull in the last 20 odd years that bought Jaguar when it was on its backside. I don't know if you've seen the video I did about Brawn GP as well. That's also an interesting story. So go and check that one out. It's in the list of videos I did recently about F1 legends. And they were only in for one season, then Mercedes bought them. So, it does happen. But this is different because they're not coming in and acquiring a team that, has been around for a while. They're building from scratch. And so I can understand that building from scratch is probably better to bring in a couple of experienced drivers that can just help them probably jump over a few hurdles and steps that they would otherwise face if they were to have a rookie in the team. However, I still think it's a bit of a shame that they haven't gone for that approach of experience with somebody more junior. I think they will end up getting there eventually. They're not going to have people that are sort of semi-retired driving the cars forever. No offense to Valtteri Bottas or Sergio Perez. But actually leading into that, I think it is important just to go back in history slightly and say, okay, well, what were these guys doing before? And why are they the best fit for this team? And I wanted to start really with Sergio Perez because I have mixed emotions about Sergio Perez as well. So if I just take you to this story here. So Sergio Perez defiant over Red Bull F1 axe. I have nothing to prove. Okay, well, I guess you don't. Your bank balance is probably massive, and you had a good time at Red Bull up until probably the last two seasons where you really fell off a cliff. And that falling off a cliff is something that Sergio Perez talks about here, and I'm going to touch on another story in a second as well, which links into that. So Sergio Perez will team up with Valtteri Bottas next season, and the six-time Grand Prix winner has spoken out about his tenure alongside Max Verstappen at Red Bull. This is from RN Racing News 365. Sergio Perez is adamant he does not have anything to prove in F1, a resolve only strengthened by the relative struggles of the two drivers who replaced him at Red Bull. The Mexican driver is set for an F1 return in 26, partnering Valtteri Bottas at the new Cadillac entry in a lineup built on vast experience. Yeah, makes sense. I can understand that. For Perez, it might as well come back after a year on the sidelines following a difficult 2024 season at exit Red Bull. Well, it wasn't just 2024, was it? The previous season was a bit of a disaster as well. And I still have questions about why that happened. So, since his departure, the challenge of being Max Verstappen's teammates not diminished. Liam Lawson's tenure in the seat lasted 2 races, while his replacement Tsunoda struggled to make an impact. All right, so I don't feel like there's anything to prove, he says. Not because of the current drivers or next drivers in my Red Bull seat, but even before that. Okay, that's fair enough, but let's focus on Red Bull. Now, everyone forgets about it, but it's been a very tricky place to be and constantly be adapting to build confidence mentally. It's a very unique challenge. Hang on a second. Sergio Perez has been around the block. He drove that Red Bull really well, particularly in the season where he held off Hamilton. Do you remember I can't remember which track it was now, but there was a race where he pretty much basically helped Verstappen to win the race by just being a pain in the arse, blocking Hamilton for God knows how many laps until I think he eventually got past him, but it was a long time, and in that time Verstappen was up the road when those cars were much closer together. And yeah, so he's then going blah blah blah, new project, blah blah blah, all the stuff he's got to say. So it's coming back to enjoy the sport. Okay, well I can tell that he didn't enjoy it when he was at Red Bull. That's pretty obvious. I couldn't afford to leave the way I left, and that's why I'm coming back with this new project. I hope it's successful, but amongst that, other than anything, I want to enjoy this comeback. Well, the pressure's definitely off in some regards, although I would argue that the pressure is also possibly on, because we're talking about, him coming into a team that actually has to perform now. So, is he going to be expected to be at the back of the grid? I don't know. I think he will be at the back of the grid, and I think that Valtteri Bottas will be at the back of the grid, not because of them, but because of the car. But even if the car was brilliant, would they be up near the front? I'm not so sure they would. So I think they've gone for two drivers that, make sense on paper, and I'm sure there'll be a solid start and a solid foundation for the team. But then I just want to come on to this, because this was a article written by Jolyon Palmer. I like Jolyon Palmer, actually. He never was at the pinnacle of F1, although he wasn't in the greatest team either, which kind of comes back to what I'm talking about. But he's talking about here, sorry, I'll go back up the top slightly. I wish I could get rid of all this mess, but I can't. So, in fact, let me make it slightly smaller for you. There we go. Palmer, why is Verstappen the only driver able to get results for Red Bull, and what can the team do about it? So this was an article a few weeks ago talking about the age-old conversation about why only Max Verstappen can get the best out of the Red Bull car. And it talks about his early retirement at the Austrian Grand Prix. That was the last Grand Prix that I was actually at. I saw the corner where he got smacked into, and obviously that was very unfortunate for Verstappen and the 99% of people that were at the track that seemed to be there only for Verstappen. Oh, poor you. Anyway, so what he's talking about here is basically why only Verstappen get a song out of that car. So blah, 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 blah. And yeah, he says, it's well documented the car's hard to drive, but you sense the frustration from Horner in his post-Grand Prix comments. It isn't an easy car to drive, but it's not that difficult either. It must have been a tough reality check for the pit wall who didn't have their star driver in play. Okay, well, we don't need to talk about Verstappen. Trying to drive this car on the limit for an entire lap isn't easy unless you make changes to settle it down. But if you settle it down and find a more drivable balance, you take away the natural strength of the design philosophy and pick up too much understeer, which makes you plain slow. This seems to be where Tsunoda is at now. Right, so this is obviously a few weeks ago, this article, and what's happened since then is that absolutely nothing's changed whatsoever. Tsunoda is still farting around at the back of the grid, having accidents, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, Lawson is now going gangbusters again in the Racing Bulls, which is exactly what Tsunoda was doing. So, yeah, all things seem to lead to the car. I get it. Now, Tsunoda's actually an experienced driver. Liam Lawson less so, at F1 level at least. But Sergio Perez, he was there for quite a long time at Red Bull, and he was even talked about as potentially winning the championship at least one season when he was nearly neck and neck with Verstappen for quite a while, and then he had that cliff edge fall. So I just asked the question. Obviously, the car is designed around Verstappen. Obviously, it's difficult to drive. If it wasn't difficult to drive, these guys would be driving it, maybe not to the same level as Verstappen, but not a million miles off. That all makes sense. But Cadillac's just brought in Sergio Perez, and I'm not bashing Sergio Perez. I hope he does well. Not my favourite driver. I don't really have an opinion on him, to be honest, but he was in a car that he says he was difficult to drive like the other guys, but he was driving that car well until a certain point. Now, I imagine changes happened to it, fair enough. But an experienced driver, which is why Cadillac have brought him in, suddenly struggles with the car when something changes in it. So why are Cadillac so confident that Sergio Perez is going to make any difference to that car over, say, a rookie? I'm just asking the question, why? Because a rookie will definitely crash it more and will make more mistakes and will end up at the back of the grid. But what I expect to happen is what happened at Red Bull, which was Perez, yeah, he did prang the car a few times. In fact, towards the end, I almost wonder whether it was sabotage. But for the majority of the time, it wasn't that he was smashing the car up. He was just slow. He was just slow in that car. He couldn't cope with that car. And now he's going to go into a car that's brand new, almost certainly slower than the rest, and we'll definitely have some, as we go into the new season with technical changes as well. I would imagine all the teams are going to struggle a bit, maybe Mercedes less so, let's see. But he is going to struggle in that car. I can almost guarantee he's going to struggle in that car. Now, I think Valtteri Bottas is as well, but I'm pretty sure that Perez is going to, because he's not the quickest driver. He's in a car that, again, he's going to have the same sort of issue as Red Bull, where it's like, well, is it designed around him? Yeah, I guess it will be, but they haven't had him in a car before, so it's all new. It's all new to everybody. So I don't think anybody was expecting fireworks or Cadillac to be, coming 8th or getting points in the constructors in the first few races, or maybe even the first full season. But I think that they've gone for the safe bet, the big name, who I think is probably past his best. And Perez is, I think, past his best. I think you'll find that Bottas is, I don't know how old he is now, but he's not likely to do very much in that car either. So yeah, they'll get data, which is important. Yeah, they'll probably have two drivers, I think, that won't be difficult to work with, and I think we'll probably be able to get on with each other as well. They seem both quite mild-mannered, low ego, all that kind of stuff. But really, guys, they could have chosen one of them that was just maybe a little bit more edgy, or perhaps sort of given them a bit more, and maybe given them data they wouldn't have got from these two slightly safe bets. So anyway, that's my opinion. I'm sorry if I'm being unfair to either of them. I'm actually interested to see what happens next season. Does it excite me that Cadillac's in? It's not a brand or a name that I have any interest in whatsoever. No. But actually, having another couple of cars on the grid, I am excited about, because I don't think there are too many cars on the grid at the moment. And in fact, it might just spice things up a little bit and add a bit more intrigue into what's going on. And I think they might even be adding maybe another team in the following season as well. Who knows? I mean, the whole way F1 is going is like more teams, more tracks, longer seasons. I don't think it's going to stop in the short term. Just lastly then, I'll stop waffling. Just going back to teams. So I found this article, Money Woes, Dire Displays and a paddock arrest, 10 F1 teams who failed horribly. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there are one or two teams here we should be aware of. Virgin Marussia, I mean, if any of you actually even remember them, Manor, yeah, they had 3 names, didn't they, in the space of 6 years, which probably tells you all you need to know, really. They joined with, been launched by Richard Branson, a man who's got very deep pockets, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, had the terrible situation with Jules Bianchi, which, we might cover in another video at some point, how that really changed safety in F1. Maybe that's something I'll cover if you find that interesting. But yeah, they were always at the back of the grid, and they were painfully slow. So, there's one team that lasted 6 years. Team Lotus Caterham, again, 3 names in 4 years, impressive. They lasted 20 minutes as well. HRT, God, they were even less time, 2 years. So another one, Bruno Senna, obviously, from the famous family, again, did absolutely nothing, but you can't blame him, and the car was just crap. USF1, I don't even remember them. Oh, okay, so they were fronted by Peter Windsor. Oh, okay. Oh, Proposed Team. That's why I don't remember them. My memory's not great, but might be a middle-aged dad, but my memory's not that bad. Super Gory, yeah, another one. Blah, blah, blah. Lola. Anyway, you get the point. The point is that there's been tons of these teams in the past. So, a Cadillac like to be any better? I have no idea. We'll see. Anyway, if you have any comments or feedback, give us a like and subscribe. And if you want to suggest anything you'd like me to talk about in more detail, or go into more detail in the topics already covered, I'm all ears. So in that regard, I will leave it for today, and I wish you all a good day. And I'm not AI. I am a real person. Goodbye.